Unit 9. Organ Transplantation 1. Organ transplantation is a medical procedure in which an organ is removed from the warm body and placed in the body of a recipient to replace a damaged or missing organ. Transplantation raises a number of bioethical issues, including the definition of death, when and how consent should be given for an organ to be transplanted, and payment for organ for transplantation. Other ethical issues include transplantation tourism and more broadly the socio-economic context in which organ procurement or transplantation may occur. A particular problem is organ trafficking. Transplantation medicine is one of the most challenging and complex areas of modern medicine. Some of the key areas for medicine management are the problem of the transplant rejection, during which the body has an immune response to the transplanted organ, possibly leading to transplant failure and the need to immediately remove the organ from the recipient when possible. Transplant rejection can be reduced through serotyping to determine the most appropriate donor-recipient match and through the use of immunosuppressant drugs. 2. Cancer rate doubles in transplant recipient. Organ transplant recipients have a much greater risk of cancer than the general population. According to the new study, not the reason is not entirely clear. Cancer growth is often triggered by viruses, and the body's immune system helps keep those viruses in check. But transplant recipients get powerful drugs to suppress their immune system so that they don't reject the transplanted organ. Researchers has known that transplant recipients are more likely to get cancer, but this new study published in JAMA showed how much more likely. Lead author Eric Engels of the U.S. National Cancer Institute says getting an organ transplant can double your risk of cancer during the year after transplant. 3. Organ trade is the trade of human organ, tissues, or a body part of the purpose of transplantation. There is a global need or demand for health body parts for transplantation, for exceeding the numbers available. As of 2011, about 19,000 people were reported to be waiting for a new organ in the United States. On average, an individual will wait 3.5 years for an organ to become available for transplant. There is a worldwide shortage of organs available for transplantation, which for illegal organ trafficking trade in human organ is illegal in many jurisdictions for various reasons. Though organ trafficking is widespread as is transplant tourism. The data on the extent of the black market is difficult to obtain. The question of whether to legalize and regulate the organ trade to combat illegal trafficking and organ shortage is hotly debated. 4. Ethics of organ transplantation. Organ harvesting from living people is one of the most frequently discussed debate topics in organ transplantation. The World Health Organization agrees that transplantation promotes health, but the nation of transplantation tourism has the potential to violate human rights or exploit the force. To have unintended health consequences has to provide unequal access to services, all of which ultimately may cause harm. Thus, WHO calls for a ban on compensated organ transplant and asks member states to protect the most vulnerable from transplant tourism and organ trade. There is also a powerful opposing view that trade is organ. If properly and effectively regulated to ensure that the seller is fully informed of the consequence of donation, is multi-yearly beneficial transaction. The question is made even more complicated by the fact that the irreversibly criterion for legal death cannot be adequately defined and can easily change with changing technology. As controversies on the boundary of life and death grows, the debate ensures on when to end of life care and start organ harvesting.